Hollywood has long been recognized for its glitz, celebrity, and exaggerated identities, yet many stars conceal terrible and sinister truths behind the red carpets and brilliant lights. The lives of some of the greatest actors in Hollywood are full of surprising disclosures that the public would never believe, ranging from violent pasts and family tragedies to scandalous relationships and secret addictions. In addition to their on-screen personas, these 25 superstars are well known for their bizarre private lives that were long concealed. This list explores the most sinister backstories of Hollywood's biggest names, revealing the reality beneath their well-manicured public personas. Get yourself ready for an incredible glimpse of Hollywood's secret tragedies. Ann Miller, The Blues Away. Hollywood's most brilliant tap dancer, Ann Miller, had a terrible secret that almost ruined her despite her stunning appearance. She married Rhys Milner, and then her life took a horrible turn. Although Ann Miller was known for being Hollywood's most excellent tap dancer, she endured the most tragedy behind closed doors. First, Rhys Milner, her husband, was an absolute monster. Despite winning Ann over with his considerable fortune, this scrap iron heir's anger ultimately resulted in the most horrific incident of her life and her biggest secret. Poor Ann was about to have the most unpleasant awakening since Milner was the epitome of a wolf in sheep's clothing. 2 days after Valentine's Day in 1946, Ann and Miller were married when RKO reluctantly released her from her contract. It was all downhill, but the chapel wedding in Montecito, California, went off without a hitch. After 2 months of marriage, Ann became pregnant. Even though Ann was thrilled to have a child, she could not ignore that her marriage had soured. Milner, who was very envious, even objected to Ann hanging out with her mother and friends. However, it was just the beginning. Ann had no clue what she was getting into when she married Milner. She quickly discovered, much to her dismay, that Milner's moods fluctuated from being hostile and frighteningly cruel. However, there was a terrible explanation for everything. You see, Milner had suffered a brain injury from a horse falling on him years before, which had permanently changed his attitude and made him violent. Unfortunately, Milner's erratic behavior was directed toward Ann, and she finally paid the price. Ann and Milner remained at his ranch while she was 9 months pregnant, anticipating the arrival of their daughter, Mary. In a terrifying turn of events, Milner threw Ann down a flight of stairs after losing his temper after a dispute. She had a lower back fracture from the fall, and she went into labor shortly after. The absolute horror started at this point. Despite suffering from a broken back, Ann Miller was able to give birth to her daughter on November 12, 1946. Her relief, however, was fleeting. Little Mary died after only 3 hours of life. Ann was devastated beyond measure by the tragedy, and no one could know the truth, just like the rest of her problems. She had to preserve this painful secret. The media, on the other hand, told an entirely different tale. They said that Ann Miller had lost the baby in a vehicle accident, which was sad. Another well-known celebrity experienced a similar injustice, only he had his mother torn away from him, while Miller never got to see her kid. Michael Caine. I can do it. Can you do it? Michael Caine believed he understood his family, but when his mother passed away, he learned a long-kept truth that completely upended his life. Michael Caine's life was completely upended when his mother kept a massive secret from his whole family. You see, he had an older half-brother called David and a younger brother named Stanley. But Caine doesn't realize David exists until his mother passes away. David was unknown even to his father. Throughout her life, the matriarch of the family kept her mouth shut. Caine's mother's visits to David in the hospital, where he spent his whole childhood because of severe epilepsy, were the only clues. English actor Sir Michael Caine, CBE, is well known for his Cockney accent. He starred in over 160 films throughout his 8-decade career and is regarded as a British cinema classic. Caine became well known worldwide because of Zulu, 1964, an epic reenactment of a famous battle between Zulu warriors and British troops in South Africa in the 19th century. Despite Zulu being a huge hit, Caine's popularity was primarily due to his portrayal of Harry Palmer in The Ipcress File, 1965, and the titular part in Alfie, 1966. He personified the new kind of actor that emerged in England in the middle of the 1960s, the working class guy with spectacles and a regional accent. Woody Harrelson, all right, all right. After I make the best, come on back to the Airstream. Despite Woody Harrelson's reputation for being easygoing, his family background is everything but. Among the most infamous hitmen in American history was his father. According to many, Woody Harrelson is gifted and has almost boundless potential. How many of you know that Woody Harrelson's father, Charles Harrelson, was the most infamous hitman of the previous century? Charles Harrelson carried out the first known assassination of a federal judge. For only $1,500, he once murdered a carpet dealer over a dispute. Woody Tracy Harrelson, an Academy Award nominee and Emmy Award winner, was born in Midland, Texas on July 23, 1961, to Diane Lou Oswald and Charles Harrison. His mother was from Lebanon, Ohio, where he was raised. After graduating from Hanover College with English and theater arts degrees, he briefly worked in New York theater. Soon after, he was chosen to play Woody on the television sitcom Cheers, 1982, which became one of the most watched television programs ever. In 1989, Harrelson won an Emmy for his portrayal. Although he experimented with cinema while on Cheers, 1982, that aspect of his career didn't take off until the show's final season. His first well-recognized film role came in 1991, thanks to Doc Hollywood, and he went on to star in Natural Born Killers, 1994, Indecent Proposal, 1993, and White Men Can't Jump, 1992. More recently, Harrelson starred in the critically acclaimed HBO film Game Change in 2012, as well as No Country for Old Men, 2007, Zombieland, 2009, 2012, 2009, and Friends with Benefits, 2011. Esther Williams, Aquatic Secrets. Hollywood's aquatic star Esther Williams was shocked to learn of her secret connection with a stunning actor. She will never forget this encounter. The aquatic musicals of the 1940s and 1950s were among the most perplexing Hollywood subgenres, and Esther Williams was, without a doubt, its queen bee. Williams was the only one to emerge from the pool's depths smiling. However, underneath her glitzy exterior, Williams had a history of sinful indulgences and turbulent relationships. But until her sensational tell-all was released, which revealed one of her lover's darkest secrets, a large portion of her private life remained hidden. Williams' friendship with Jeff Chandler was perhaps the most startling revelation in her biography. She had encountered the sulky actor at a difficult time. Her marriage was in jeopardy, and MGM had just dumped her. Williams, teetering on the brink, threw herself headfirst into a passionate romance, which quickly grew intense. Before Chandler gave her the surprise of her life, she and Chandler were about to be married. Williams describes how she entered her bedroom and saw Chandler wearing a gown, wig, and high heels, a new way for her to view him. Williams quit the connection immediately and kept the information to herself for years until her book was released. Chandler was known for being extremely macho, all 6 feet 5 inches. Matthew Broderick, Dark Shadows. Matthew Broderick's boy-next-door image hides a dark past. One tragic accident in Ireland nearly destroyed his life and left 2 families forever changed. In 1987, while on vacation in Ireland with Dirty Dancing star Jennifer Grey, a car driven by Broderick collided head-on with a Volvo. Broderick and Grey survived, but the 2 passengers in the other vehicle died. Broderick faced up to 10 years in prison for causing death by dangerous driving. However, the actor was later fined just $175 and convicted of the lesser charge of careless driving. Broderick has said that he remains haunted by the accident to this day. He broke his leg in the accident, which happened just as Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, his biggest hit, was coming out in the U.S. The box office success but critical flop Godzilla, 1998, gave Broderick his first action role. Should any Godzilla sequels be planned, he is under contract for 2 more. By the way, he has occasionally returned to the stage in New York, either in revivals of old musicals such as How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, or in revivals of old plays such as Night Must Fall. Jack Nicholson, A Twisted Truth. Jack Nicholson thought his parents raised him, but he lived a shocking lie. The truth was more twisted than any movie plot he'd ever starred in. Now, this is a story that makes your jaw drop. Jack Nicholson was raised by who he thought were his parents. He had a 17-year-old sister named June when he was born. June revealed she was Jack's mother only after his parents passed away. His parents were his grandparents. They kept it a secret because of the stigma associated with June's underage pregnancy. Jack Nicholson, an American actor, producer, director, and screenwriter, is a 3-time Academy Award winner and 12-time nominee. Nicholson is also notable for being one of 2 actors, the other being Michael Caine, who have received an Oscar nomination every decade from the 1960s through the 2000s. His big break came with Easy Rider, 1969, and his portrayal of liquor-soaked attorney George Hansen, which earned Nicholson his first Oscar nomination. Nicholson's film career took off in the 1970s with a definitive performance in 5 Easy Pieces, 1970. His other notable work during this period includes leading roles in Roman Polanski's noir masterpiece, Chinatown, 1974, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975, for which he won the Best Actor Oscar. The 1980s started with another career-defining role for Nicholson as Jack Torrance in Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of Stephen King's novel, The Shining, 1980. In the 1990s, he starred in varied films such as A Few Good Men, 1992, for which he received another Oscar nomination and a dual role in Mars Attacks, 1996. Cary Grant, A Shocking Family Secret. Cary Grant's mother disappeared from his life when he was just 9 years old, and he didn't find out the shocking truth until he was an adult. Initially, Grant's father, Elias, claimed that his mother was away at a seaside resort, but as time went on, he revealed a different story. Grant's mother had died. However, this was also a terrible lie. It wasn't until he was 31 years old that Grant learned the truth about his mother's disappearance. As he lay on his deathbed, Elias revealed his darkest secret. Cary Grant's mother, Elsie, wasn't dead or at a seaside resort. Instead, she had been alive the entire time, imprisoned in a mental institution because Elias had put her there so he could pursue a new bride. Grant was horrified and promptly traveled to England to rescue his mother from the asylum. Bob Hope, A Scandalous Double Life. Bob Hope might have been America's favorite family man, but his private life was scandalous. His secret affairs became one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. The public saw Bob Hope as a stand-up family man, but industry insiders knew him much differently. Surprise, surprise, the man who hoodwinked 2 women into marriage wasn't so faithful. He wasn't loyal at all. As one insider wrote, whenever the superstar went to a hotel, outside his room were 3, 4, or 5 young beautiful girls waiting to be picked by him to come in. Hope was flirting with disaster, and disaster flirted right back. In 1949, Hope began an affair with the up-and-coming actress Barbara Payton. He even set her up in a Hollywood apartment to visit her at all-night hours. But Payton, like many a starlet before her, was starved for attention and demanded more gifts and favors from the veteran actor. Fed up, Hope eventually broke things off with Payton, though he paid her off to keep her quiet. Her reaction was the definition of spiteful. Unable to seal her lips, the actress signed up for a 1956 tell-all interview with Confidential magazine, spilling the beans about her affair with Bob Hope. Richard Pryor, Comedy Born from Pain. Richard Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor Sr. was an American stand-up comedian and actor. He reached a broad audience with his incisive observations and storytelling style, and is considered one of the most significant stand-up comedians ever. Richard Pryor turned his pain into comedy, but his childhood was anything but funny. His story is heartbreaking. The comedian was the son of a prostitute who raised him in her mother's house, which doubled as a brothel, and when his mother abandoned him, he was left in the care of his abusive grandmother. Melissa Joan Hart, A Wild Side Revealed. Melissa Joan Hart is an American actress best known for her starring roles as the title characters in the sitcoms Clarissa Explains It All, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Melissa and Joey. She also starred as Liz in No Good Nick. However, behind the scenes, Hart was living a wild life of partying and experimentation that would shock her fans. In her memoir, Melissa Explains It All, Tales from My Abnormally Normal Life, Hart talked about her rebellious side. Other films Hart has starred in include Drive Me Crazy, Nine Dead, and God's Not Dead 2. Kathy Griffin, The Trauma Beneath the Laughs. Kathy Mary Griffin is an American comedian and actress who has starred in television series and comedy specials, released multiple comedy albums, and won Primetime Emmy Awards for her reality show, Kathy Griffin, My Life on the D-List, in 2007 and 2008. Her sharp tongue conceals a painful past. Her brother's disturbing behavior left her with lifelong scars that she still struggles with today. Her autobiography, My Life on the D-List, reveals a harrowing truth. Her brother was sexually inappropriate with her, causing her to suffer from long-lasting trauma. Joan Crawford, A Scandal Buried by Hollywood. Before becoming one of the most famous women of her era, Joan Crawford reportedly starred in at least one pornographic film, possibly while still underage. Her later employer, MGM Studios, allegedly destroyed all the film copies, so we may never know the truth. When Crawford left MGM in 1943, she paid them $50,000, which is an unusual gesture unless one assumes it was a repayment for concealing her damaging film debut. Ingrid Bergman, Secret Affairs of a Hollywood Icon. Ingrid Bergman's on-screen romances were legendary, but her off-screen affairs were even more scandalous. One shocking affair was kept secret for years until long after her death. 5 years after Bergman's death, news of her secret affair with Gregory Peck surfaced. In an interview with People, Peck admitted that he and Bergman had a brief but intense romance while filming 1945's Spellbound. "All I can say is that I had a real love for her," Peck said, "and I think that's where I ought to stop." Peck wasn't the only person to disclose a secret relationship with Bergman, demonstrating that her off-screen life was just as intense as her on-screen life. Robert Downey Jr., A Troubled Beginning. Few people are aware of the tragic beginnings of Robert Downey Jr.'s addictions despite his well-known troubled past. His father's actions set him on a dark path, and when he was just 8 years old, his father, Robert Downey Sr., introduced him to drugs and alcohol. Fortunately, both men are now sober and have expressed sincere regret for their past actions. John Huston, The Crime That Changed a Legend. He was a struggling screenwriter before making his directorial debut when he hit dancer Tosca Rulian with his car one night, killing her. Although he was cleared of all charges in court, the accident haunted John Huston so much that he left Hollywood and drifted through Europe for 5 years, haunted by the guilt of a crime that would follow him for the rest of his life. At the time, there was a rumor that famous actor Clark Gable was responsible for Rulian's death and that Huston was paid to take the fall. Charlize Theron, A Violent Past. Few people talk about Charlize Theron's traumatic past, but it was a horrific act of violence that changed her family forever. Theron was raised on a South African farm when her father attacked her mother one night while intoxicated, and her mother shot and killed him in self-defense. No charges were ever brought against her. Charlize Theron is an American and South African actress and producer. She is one of the highest-paid actresses in the world and has won multiple awards, including an Academy Award and a Golden Globe. Time named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2016. Burt Lancaster, Secrets and Surveillance. Burt Lancaster was a Hollywood hottie with a startling secret. The FBI kept a close eye on his private life, but was it all a smear campaign? In 2000, 6 years after his death, the FBI published documents that showed that J. Edgar Hoover had been closely monitoring Lancaster in the 1950s. There were rumors that he had affairs with men and engaged in predatory behavior. Still, it's important to note that Hoover may have made up the information to damage Lancaster's reputation as a dangerous communist. Outside of the FBI's reports, rumors about Lancaster's sexual orientation were stoked by his preference for male personal secretaries and his frequent visits to Rock Hudson's house, where allegedly gay orgies took place. Lauren Bacall, Secrets of a Hollywood Legend. Lauren Bacall's legacy is full of secrets, and in her last years she revealed shocking details about her hidden Hollywood rivalries and affairs. She died a month before her 90th birthday after suffering a stroke. Throughout her life, Bacall was a mystery, but in her later years, she started to reveal secrets that had been kept secret for decades. One of the most startling revelations concerned Howard Hawks, the director who found her, who became enraged when Bacall rejected him while filming her debut film. Looking back on the love triangle years later, Hawks made the cruel remark, "Bogey fell in love with the character she played, so she had to keep playing it the rest of her life." Anthony Perkins, the double life of a Hollywood star. There were many secrets in Anthony Perkins' private life, but one of the most devastating ones came to light just before his death, shocking fans all over the world. One of Perkins' best-kept secrets was his romance with Hollywood hottie Tab Hunter. However, they were good college buddies to the public. Their relationship was intense and passionate behind closed doors, and even though it lasted only 3 years, their covert relationship was significant. But Perkins' most painful truth was his battle with HIV, which he only found out about after a tabloid published the report. Disturbed by the news, he sought medical confirmation, only to discover that the report was accurate. Stricken with the disease, he chose to endure his illness in private, with only his wife and family by his side, even going to the hospital discreetly. Jackie Chan, a legacy of risk and secrets. Jackie Chan is a Hong Kong actor, director, producer, martial artist, and stuntman known for his slapstick acrobatic fighting style, comedic timing, and groundbreaking stunts, most of which he performs himself. His love of risk-taking may be inherited because his parents had extraordinary lives filled with crime and intrigue long before he was born. His father was a Nationalist Guard's secret agent, and his mother was a notorious drug lord. Their lives collided when Chan's father arrested his future mother for drug possession, sparking an unlikely partnership that ultimately led to Chan's birth. Elvis Presley, the King's darker side. Elvis Presley may have been the king of rock and roll, but his insecurities exposed a much darker side to his personal life. Despite his wealth and fame, Presley battled deep-seated insecurities, especially in the area of intimacy, which led him to pursue relationships with very young girls, especially those who had never had sex, because he felt less pressure to perform. This is concerning because it meant that he frequently told his managers to find girls as young as 16, which was illegal in many states, even during the lenient periods of his fame. Rose McGowan, escaping a nightmare. Rose McGowan was raised in a cult called the Children of God, which promoted free love but harbored widespread abuse, especially against women and children. She witnessed these horrors firsthand as a child and eventually fled the cult as a teenager, leaving behind the toxic ideology of the cult. Rose McGowan is an American actress and director known for her roles in independent films and her outspoken activism. Her past is darker than any role she has played on screen. Wallace Reed, the tragic fall of Hollywood's first action hero. Hollywood's first action hero, Wallace Reed, was a daredevil who performed stunts in movies like The Roaring Road. However, his life and career were cut short after an accident on the Valley of the Giants set in 1919. He suffered injuries that left him in chronic pain, and doctors prescribed morphine to help him cope. Unfortunately, this led to a devastating addiction. At the time, addiction was viewed as a scandal too damaging for Hollywood to handle openly, so studio executives did everything in their power to conceal Reed's problems while still using him as a box office attraction. Reed's condition worsened to the point where the studios sent him to a sanitarium to try to recover, but the withdrawal process caused a fatal heart attack and he died in 1923 at the age of 31. Marion Davies, a hidden legacy revealed. Marion Davies kept a secret so tightly guarded that it didn't come to light until decades later, thanks to a shocking deathbed confession by her niece, Patricia Van Cleve Lake. In 1993, Patricia revealed that she was not Davies' niece, but her biological daughter, the result of Davies' long affair with media tycoon William Randolph Hearst. As the story goes, Davies became pregnant sometime between 1919 and 1923. To avoid scandal, Hearst arranged for her to give birth in France, away from the prying eyes of Hollywood. After the birth, Davies' sister, Rose, who had recently lost a child, raised Patricia as her own, with falsified documents to protect the secret. The situation grew more complicated when Rose's estranged husband kidnapped Patricia, disappearing with her for 5 years. Despite the heartbreak, Davies and Hearst maintained their secret, supporting Patricia financially and eventually revealing the truth to her privately. Patricia carried this story with her for nearly her entire life before finally sharing it with the world. Stan Laurel, the dark side of a comedy icon. Although Stan Laurel, one half of the renowned comic team Laurel and Hardy, who was well known for his on-screen antics, his off-screen conduct revealed a much more sinister side. Even though the allegations were sensational, they were primarily suppressed because Shuvalova's divorce agreement forbade her from speaking or publishing anything about their marriage. Nevertheless, the revelations overshadowed Laurel's otherwise legendary career, demonstrating that even comedy legends can harbor dark secrets. During his third divorce, shocking details about Laurel's violent and erratic behavior, which was made worse by his struggles with alcoholism, surfaced. His then-wife, Vera Shuvalova, accused him of threatening her with a gun and disclosed a particularly gruesome incident. Laurel allegedly dug a grave in their backyard while intoxicated, declaring that he planned to bury her alive.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon